is a fellow at John F. Kennedy School of Government at Harvard University. Thanks so much for joining us, Zachary. More than 20 years, $2 billion later, have these trials delivered what they should have?
Well, opponents would say certainly not, that there's been too much money expended on too few cases and taking entirely too long to reach those decisions with acquittals that people disagree with. On the other hand, proponents of the tribunal would say, look, such an enormous crisis requires a very long timeline, it requires a significant budget and lots of staff to adjudicate. And so it really depends on the perspective of the person speaking, but many people are disappointed with the outcome of the tribunal.
Okay, let me get your personal opinion then here. In hindsight and in considering the criticism the tribunal's been hit with, what could have been done differently?
Well, it's unclear that it needed to take this long. Especially the early years of the tribunal were plagued with mismanagement, inefficiency, some allegations of nepotism, and having more competent staff in place early on might have expedited the entire system.
Then what do you think has been learned from these trials, particularly in terms perhaps of legal precedents set?
There have been enormous and extremely significant both legal and political precedents set by the tribunal. First of all, it was the first international court to issue a legal finding that genocide had indeed been committed against Tutsi in Rwanda in 1994. Furthermore, this was the first international court ever to convict for genocide either a man, a woman, or a clergyman. It also was the first international court to codify rape in international law and hold that it could constitute genocide. The first court to receive a guilty plea from a former head of state, and the first court, the first international court, to convict journalists of incitement to genocide. And then politically, it was the first international court to have jurisdiction over a purely domestic conflict, and it affirmed the precedent set by the Yugoslav Tribunal of the Security Council, the United Nations Security Council, using its Chapter 7 powers to create ad hoc war crimes tribunals in the first place. And I think I would add at the end that it also represents, this tribunal, really how much progress had been made in terms of international cooperation between great powers since the end of the Cold War rivalry that had really paralyzed international cooperation between the Soviet Union and the United States. Russia and the United States worked extremely closely on creating the tribunal for Rwanda and also for Yugoslavia, and also on handling the startup logistics in the early years.
Okay, Zachary Kaufman, unfortunately we'll have to leave it there. Thanks so much for joining us.